I don't know, I've seen people put on like a coat of guilt when it comes to, you know, how they relate to weed in their spiritual practice. And I just feel like there's no reason to guilt yourself if it's serving you. And if it isn't serving you and you're guilting yourself, it's because you're not looking at why you have become dependent on it. I think it's more a question of dependency and using things unconsciously rather than it is like the specific plant itself. Hey besties! This is the earliest I've ever shot a video. I actually don't even know if it's smart for me to be doing this because the sun is wilding out right now. If you can't tell by my sleepy eyes, I'm pretty sure I was a bear in a past life because the way that I wear sleep is almost too visceral. But I just woke up and it's the morning of 420 and I woke up with so many feelings that I was like, let's talk about them. And by the way, hi, hello, how are you? I hope you are well, or as well as you possibly can be. My name is Jasmine Kylene, and sometimes I talk about things. So obviously, because so much of my content is spiritual, I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey and my experience and what my perspective is in terms of like weed and spirituality, because today is 420, which is a known and national holiday for the stoners, darling. I want to start this off by saying that I am someone who has such a renowned respect for plant medicine in all forms. I work with so many different herbs. I work with Bach flowers, I work with mushrooms, I work with weed as well too. And I just want to say, like, cannabis and just all forms of plant medicine serves such an important purpose. And it's important to be discerning and recognize when purpose is being served and when it's not. I also want to say that I have had every kind of relationship with weed. Like, I've had the relationship where I wasn't smoking it, had no plans of ever smoking it, tried it, was like, this is fine, smoked it every day, smoked it occasionally, did not smoke it at all, like, just, I've been everywhere with it. Where I'm at currently right now is, I'll talk about where I'm at right now currently. So yeah, I think if you are someone who needs it in any kind of way, and also if it's just something that helps, like if it's a ceremonial thing, if you gather with your friends and you have a good laugh over a joint, that is medicine, like that is medicinal. But also if you need it to increase your appetite or to alleviate pain or anxiety or social anxiety or get creative, like I think it's so beneficial. However, I am not someone who would promote anything becoming a crutch. I think if you have to rely on it in order to be creative, there's a lot of like your innate creativity that you aren't allowing to be tapped in, or you know, things of that nature. But what I really wanted to focus on was sort of the spiritual journey that one can embark on and how that can shift or change your relationship with weed, because I recognize that it was during the process of me getting more and more in alignment with my fullest self. Oh, I agree. Not only just my fullest self, but like when I tapped into the fullest potential of what peace and self-curated peace looked like, the more that weed started to have an adverse effect on me. So before, when I would smoke, it was just good vibes, good grounding vibes, good like just laughing, calm, just chill. Okay, we should probably actually relocate because the sun is now going to bully me. Okay, we have found refuge. I hope that this helps, but now you can probably see my morning face clearly, and that's also not great. Yeah, so before it served me in a space where it was something that calmed me, that grounded me, that brought me laughter and joy and just an escape from my own mind, and it was amazing. It was medicine. And it's funny because now if I do smoke it, it does sort of the complete opposite. It like induces a lot of paranoia that it didn't before, and I feel hungover for the next 3 days, and I have to do so much in order to get my vibration back to where it was before, and it kind of brings me into a place that feels energetically lower. And I realized that was because before, when I was using it to feel better, who I was and where I was at in my waking state wasn't at the highest possible vibration. And once I began working on my own through meditation, through spirituality and my spiritual practices and my rituals to get myself to be at the highest possible vibration in my waking state, every time I would smoke weed, it would like give me a false, almost like a fake form of serotonin that completely threw my natural serotonin off, and it brought me into a lower space than I would have been had I just stayed sober. And so I became one of those people that, like, I'm sure you've heard about them, that are like, weed makes you paranoid now. And I fought against that for so long because I was like, no, like, this is a plant that has been so good to me and like there's no way. But I recognize the fact that, like, if I am in a place in my life where my natural state is already being high, I just don't really need it. And I think there's this Alan Watts quote that Aaron Dowdy used, and he was talking about this, which is that, like, when you get the message, hang up. And I think that that's something that can be applied to all relationships in our lives. I think if there's, you know, a karmic partner in your life and they've taught you all that you needed to learn, you know, romantically, spiritually, however, and, you know, you recognize, like, the lesson is learned, I can release you now, but you're continuing to feed the relationship, you're continuing to show up and make space for a relationship that has clearly expired in your life, it's gonna begin to hurt you. And, you know, you have a relationship with everything in your life, and I feel like it was the same for cannabis in terms of, like, you served the purpose that you needed to serve, and I was so reluctant to let that go. So I was like, no, like, weed would never betray me. And it's like, no, it didn't. It's a medicine, but, like, you don't need to take medicine when you're not, if there isn't an ailment to treat. And if I had already reached a place where my life was at a natural high, inducing a faux form of high just threw off the natural balance of my high, and then I had to recalibrate, and just, it brought me more drainage than it did euphoria. But I do want to say that, like, now I will work with it maybe once a month, but I'm very, very, very intentional about it. And, like, I'll put it on my altar, and I only really smoke it if I know that I have to do shadow work, because it will induce so many fears that perhaps I'm bypassing in my waking state, because I can at times sort of, like, you know, just hyper focus on what feels good and not feed what doesn't feel good, which, you know, it can be helpful, but you do need to give yourself the container to confront what your shadow wants you to confront. So when I'm like, okay, it's a shadow work day, sometimes I'll use weed and cannabis as, like, a form of plant medicine to, like, really go in, because it kind of forces everything to be brought to the surface, and it's like a form of medicine in that way. So I'm very intentional about it, and I want to say that that's how it served me. And it's beautiful, but it's also, I don't know, I don't think that everyone needs to relate to it in that way. I think that, like, it should still be something that's fun. Like, if you are in the spiritual journey and you still are able to, like, smoke this plant every now and then or every day and, like, have fun, and it's not a form of distraction or taking you away from who you are when you innately source your joy in your sobriety, then, like, go off, queen. Like, not everything needs to be taken so seriously. Like, sometimes when I'm like, let me pray over this blunt, I'm like, if a version of me, like, 2 years ago saw this, she'd be like, girl, what? If you don't spark that up and watch some cartoons. But, like, and sometimes I miss when it was that easy. And so this whole, like, adverse reaction on my body is something that I'm, like, kind of annoyed by, but I also respect, because it's like today's 420, and I, of course, have friends that are like, come over, let's pass the joint around the table and let's have some giggles. And I'm like, I want to, but then for the next 4 days I'm gonna be really sad. Like, it's gonna throw off my serotonin, and it's just not worth it. But I say all that to say that if you are in a space where you're trying to figure out, you know, what space should I make in my life for weed, if I'm on the spiritual journey, should I feel guilty about it? I think it's something that is completely individual, but you really have to be fully honest and asking yourself, what role is weed playing in my life? Is this something that is habitual? Is it something that I'm now just doing on autopilot? It's not really a conscious decision anymore. Is it a crutch? Am I relying on it for creativity? Am I relying on it for peace? Am I relying on it for something that I can, if I work hard enough or focus hard enough, can innately source in my sobriety? Has it taught me the lessons that it's supposed to teach me? And I find a more balanced approach with it, right? Because it doesn't mean you have to cut it out, but it also doesn't mean you have to make space for it every single day. You know, like, where can I find myself in a happy medium? But ultimately, just, is this advancing my spiritual journey, or is it stunting it? And if none of those questions are yes, like, if it's just something that adds to your life, let it add to your life. It's medicine. It's literally gifted us from Pachamama. Like, why? It's really just a matter of, like, recognizing when and how it serves you and being honest about that. So I've actually found a lot of healing and medicinal properties from like microdosing with mushrooms now, because I think that is kind of where my body is sourcing more wisdom and healing and help. And maybe there'll be a point in my life where like the cannabis gods need to teach me something again, but I'm just not there right now. And so I'm spending this 420 not as exciting as most people are, but I did want to talk a little bit about my journey with it. I hope that I was like, if I made sense. I hope that I made sense, because I also, once again, I just woke up. I don't know, I've seen people put on like a coat of guilt when it comes to, you know, how they relate to weed in their spiritual practice, and I just feel like there's no reason to guilt yourself if it's serving you, and if it isn't serving you and you're guilting yourself, it's because you're not looking at why you have become dependent on it. I think it's more a question of dependency and using things unconsciously rather than it is like the specific plant itself. So really recognize, especially if you are beginning to have an adverse reaction, because I was beginning to, like I said, have the adverse reaction. I was like, what is this? And when I started looking online and seeing other people's experiences and seeing how it mirrored mine in terms of like, it was once they really began their meditative practice and they really began having downloads and channeling and finding peace in where they were in their waking lives, that it began to not, you know, if your vibration is here and weed vibrates here, you're gonna have to go down to meet it there, as opposed to if your vibration was here and weed's here, it was bringing you up there. So you have to just recognize what chapter you're at, right? And it isn't to say that it's a low vibrational plant, oh my god, no, but like, I don't think anything can quite meet what a state of sobriety that is enamored by life feels like. Like, I don't think that can be given to us in a synthetic form. I think that that's something that is really priceless, especially if you've worked at it and you are working at maintaining and consistently showing up for it. So like, how I feel every single day is amazing, but it's a product of me journaling and me moving my body and me meditating. And so yeah, it's not worth it for me to like forfeit it and like have to gain it back during my like hangover, just to have a like synthetic, over-exasperated form of it for a few hours, you know what I mean? So just have an honest dialogue with your body. That's kind of where I'm at right now, because I realized that I didn't want to just like cut it out of my life fully. And I think that working with it when I need to do shadow work has really been helpful. I recognize, and it's funny because I think I have such a like very intimate dialogue with my body, so I know when I'm like craving certain things and why, but like I find that anytime I want to smoke weed, it is around the same time that I really want to binge eat. Like when I'm really craving eating a lot of foods, is around the same time that I want to smoke, and it's A, I'm feeling anxious, and B, I need grounding. Like I need to feel heavy, I need to feel like I'm on the ground, because I can become very cerebral, and I can overthink things. And so I recognize when my body is asking for it medicinally, and I'll either find a way to give that to myself in my waking state. Like, okay, if I really am just craving grounding, I can also do that by going and laying in some grass, or stop. I recognize a lot of my anxiety or my overstimulation comes from being overstimulated by like digital things or just being on social media too much, so I'll like take a step back. I'll try to treat it in my sobriety, and then if worse comes to worse and I'm like, okay, maybe there's a message that I'm supposed to receive through smoking, then I'll do that. Like, it's really, I approach it with respect through a medicinal lens, which once again, you don't have to do it that way. You can also just have fun, because we're human having a human experience, and if you want to go to a concert and get high before, like, you should. I can't stress that enough. But yeah. So with that being said, I hope that wherever you're at in your journey, you're in an honest place, that it's serving you, and that if you are celebrating today, that you are safe and that you have the best time ever and that you eat yummy snacks. That was another thing. I gained so much weight while I was smoking, so it's nice to know what appetite is actually mine. Yeah, and I'm glad that you got to meet Sleepy Jasmine, because she's still not here. I'm actually not even sure that I just filmed this video. This probably was just me hallucinating. But anyway, have the best life ever. If you want to work with me one-on-one, you can do so by reaching out on Instagram at JasmineKylene or visiting jasminekylene.com or subscribe for more content. Okay, bye.